For years, Diana was my sole handler at the agency. She supplied information and secrecy, and I sold perfection. One day, I will think of this as just another job. After all, this is what I do.
It's been nearly 6.5 years since the previous Hitman title, but at long last, Agent 47 is back, and man am I glad to see him. The good news is that age hasn't slowed down our favourite slap-headed assassin one bit. The team at IO Interactive have given Hitman Absolution all the enhancements necessary to bring the game up to date with today's market, while still remaining true to the core gameplay that fans of the series love. And given that Agent 47's last outing was in 2006, that means that the old dogs had plenty of time to learn some new tricks over the years. So then, how does it play? Well, pretty damn good actually. Firstly, the fisticuffs have been given an overhaul for Absolution, meaning 47 has some slick new moves for taking down enemies if they get too close, a much needed improvement over the old headbutt and 1-2 punch combo from Hitman Blood Money. Along with a variety of strikes and throws that the bald one can now employ, Agent 47 can also acquire numerous blunt and stabbing instruments from the environment should he want to get really nasty with his foes. The gunplay has been brought up to date also. It sounds trivial now, but a new addition for this game is the ability to aim down the sights with the right mouse button, with the option of holding the shift key to tighten up the crosshair for more precise shots. There's also a mechanic called point shooting, which is essentially the mark and execute feature Ubisoft debuted in Splinter Cell Conviction. IO Interactive have also implemented a cover system, which works just as well for stealth gameplay as it does for shootouts. And stealth gameplay really is the main draw of the Hitman series. And even though Absolution is a little more lenient in favour of the action player than past entries in the series, if you're charging through every level pistols akimbo and gunning down every enemy in sight, then, dare I say it, you're playing it wrong. And to enforce this, Hitman Absolution features a scoring system which awards and deducts points based on your playstyle. If you play more like a professional hitman, you'll receive points for things like completing objectives, performing stealthy actions and killing the target, whereas if you play more like a trigger-happy thug, points will be subtracted for things like being detected as an intruder and killing anyone other than the target. Yep, you heard that right. Killing anyone other than the main target is frowned upon in Hitman Absolution, meaning there should only be about 1 to 3 kills on each level depending on how many targets you have. This isn't your typical action game where you mow down hordes of enemies with an automatic weapon, and yet, while the point of the game isn't to kill everyone in your immediate vicinity, you'll probably find yourself doing just that anyway. Hitman Absolution is a pretty challenging game, especially if you're going for the coveted silent assassin rating in each level. Slip-ups will occur frequently if you're not careful, which usually means that you'll either find yourself standing amongst piles of bullet-riddled corpses, or be one of the corpses yourself. Either way, both events are usually followed by the pause menu appearing and the restart to checkpoint button being clicked. But that's okay. Hitman Absolution is just naturally a more methodical and slower paced game than you're probably used to playing, but it just makes it all the more rewarding and satisfying when you manage to slip past the guards unnoticed, garrote the unsuspecting target and sneak out before anyone knows what's going on. There are 20 levels in Hitman Absolution, and if you're going for a full stealth playthrough, you'll probably find that it takes a good 10 to 15 hours to get through the campaign. It probably would have been a bit shorter if IO had retained the quick save feature from the previous game, but it's been replaced by player activated checkpoints this time round, which is a bit of a shame in my opinion. It would have been nice to be able to quick save, and it would have saved me having to replay chunks of the level over and over again for each time I got spotted, but it doesn't hurt the game all that much. The missions in Absolution work a bit differently from past Hitman titles however. Previously in the series, every level would drop you into a large open map, give you one or more targets to assassinate and let you figure out the best method of doing so. These types of levels still exist in Hitman Absolution, but a lot of the missions now are broken up into different sections and require the player to get through several of these areas before they arrive at the location of their target. The classic Hitman style levels that are in the game also seem to feature slightly smaller maps than those of the previous games, but Absolution makes up for it with far more detail-rich environments. I understand why the developers have included the linear missions in there. Absolution is definitely more plot-heavy than previous entries in the series, telling a more personal story about Agent 47 himself, so in order to create the more involving narrative that the team were aiming for, the linear missions were a necessary evil. I just wish that there were a few more of the traditional style missions in Absolution. I also wish you could still choose your equipment before each mission. One of the things I loved about Hitman Blood Money was choosing the right tools for the job and customizing all the guns to fit my needs. Weapon customization is still in Hitman Absolution, but only for the contracts mode, and even then you can only take one weapon with you rather than the mini arsenal I'd regularly bring along with me in Blood Money. But another criticism I have in regards to weapons is the fact that 47 can now stuff sniper rifles and other heavy weapons inside his jacket. You no longer hide your rifle inside a briefcase or carry a gun in your left hand for all to see, and I'm against this change personally. One of the great things about previous Hitman games was the fact that you couldn't conceal any large weapons except for Hitman's very own custom sniper rifle, which created the challenge of either trying to smuggle them inside or getting the job done without the use of heavy weapons. But in this game you're free to carry a big machine gun with you wherever you go. This is something I'd like to see changed for a potential sequel. Something else I'd like to see changed is the disguise system. What IO Interactive have tried to do with the disguises is a fairly decent concept, it's just not executed as well as it could be. Basically, the AI recognise their own kind now, meaning if you dress up as a janitor for example, you can get past cops and other security no problem, but the friends of the poor guy you've just left outside naked in the rain will detect that something's up, and if they get a good look at you for long enough, they're going to blow your cover. While this is a pretty sound idea, what doesn't make sense is when you dress up as a cop and the entire city's police force know you're not one of them, or when you dress up as a thug with a hockey mask on, yet his partners in crime still open fire if they get a look at you for more than 3 seconds. What makes it stupider yet is that you can now use these hide interactions to blend in, which instantly alleviate any suspicion to your disguise. The hide interactions are a great idea, but why does walking along with my back to the enemy raise their suspicion while, despite having a good view of my face, the fact that I'm tapping at a keyboard means they don't get suspicious at all? You can use the instinct mode, which is usually used for things like locating your target or seeing enemy patrol paths, to tip your hat and walk past anyone getting suspicious of you without trouble. But the real problem with the disguise system presents itself when you reach a level late in the game with only one type of enemy and your instinct bar is totally depleted, rendering disguises completely useless. And even worse, if you get detected, you fail the mission. But enough about that, let's talk about the contracts mode. This was something IO Interactive introduced for Hitman Absolution after they realised that players were pretty much doing this already in previous Hitman titles. They discovered that players would challenge each other to take out certain characters in the fastest time or without getting detected for example, so the developers decided to make this an official game mode for Absolution. Contracts is the true sandbox mode of the game. You begin by picking a level, a weapon and disguise, and then you're free to play the level, marking up to 3 targets for assassination, choosing the method of execution and finally setting the exit point. Players have already made some really difficult contracts already, but the great thing about this mode is that no matter how devious a hit is, you know that it's always possible because you have to play the contract to create it. The stipulations of the contract are created in real time based on exactly what you did, so if you want to challenge other players to have to kill a target with a knife and escape without being detected, you'll have to actually perform this action yourself. Really, you can't get any fairer than that, and it makes the harder contracts all the more impressive knowing that someone has actually done it. Overall, Contracts mode is a welcome addition to the Hitman series. In a way, it's sort of IO Interactive's solution to giving Hitman a multiplayer mode without really making it multiplayer, and I applaud this choice. Contracts definitely adds more replay value to the game, and that's certainly no bad thing. So how does Hitman Absolution fare as a PC title overall? Well, I'm happy to say that the PC version hasn't been compromised for the consoles at all. The keyboard and mouse controls work great, and there are plenty of graphics options for players to sink their teeth into. I believe the game may be just a touch more demanding than a lot of other games out there in the action-adventure genre, but it shouldn't come as a surprise really. Visually, Hitman Absolution is one of the most impressive titles of the year. Not so much in a photorealistic way, but more in a cinematic sense. Either way, the high-resolution textures and lighting effects are pretty stunning to look at. So in conclusion then, while Hitman Absolution brings many welcome additions to the series, I don't know if I can rank it above its predecessor Blood Money as they can play somewhat differently. Die-hard Hitman fans may find themselves a little disappointed at some of the changes that make it less like a traditional Hitman title, but what they will find is an excellent stealth action game overall. As a Hitman fan myself, I really enjoyed the game, and I'd highly recommend that both fans and newcomers to the series give the game a go.